with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023. My name is Emma Vigeland in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, will be with us to talk about the electoral failures of the right-wing school board candidates. And later, AMQuickie's own Jacob Silverman will be here to explain what's really happening with OpenAI. Meanwhile, Israel announces a 4-day pause in its relentless bombardment of Gaza in exchange for 50 women and children hostages. 150 Palestinian prisoners, many of them teenagers jailed for throwing rocks, are said to be released as well. The pause means more dead can be counted, and much to the chagrin of Netanyahu and reportedly the Biden administration, journalists can document it. The death toll in Gaza has topped 14,000. Politico reports that the White House has been giving Israel geolocation data for humanitarian groups. But golly gee, Israel's striking them anyway. It's almost like they want to. Ro Khanna becomes the 43rd member of Congress to call for a ceasefire. Echoes of the Red Scare. Susan Sarandon dropped by a major talent agency over her pro-Palestine advocacy. And a lesser-known actress, Melissa Barrera, fired from Scream 7 for calling Israel's bombardment a genocide. Which, by the way, scholars are also calling it.
For sharing a Jewish Currents article making that argument.
Here in New York, an ex-Obama foreign policy advisor was caught berating a halal vendor with violent Islamophobic rhetoric. Abortion rights groups want to replicate success in Ohio. They're trying to get the right to an abortion on the ballot in 9 other states. This comes as a post-Dobbs data analysis shows birth rate increases in every state with an abortion ban. An estimated 1/4 of women who would have gotten abortions were forced to give birth. The newly liberal Wisconsin Supreme Court appears poised to strike down the GOP gerrymandered maps. Great news. Less great news. A circuit judge has overruled the will of the Oregon people, overturning the gun safety ballot measure approved last year. Faculty at 23 California State University campuses are preparing to strike in a week or two. And lastly, don't call it a comeback. Thirsty-ass Andrew Cuomo is leaking to the press that he may run for mayor. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. Sam is out. He mentioned it yesterday. He's dealing with a cat situation, vet appointment ahead of the holiday. So we'll be with you with our final live show of the week. But on Friday, we will have 3 best of interviews. One done by me, one done by Sam, and one by Matt and David with Left Reckoning. So tune into that because those are some of, the ones that we want to highlight. And I can speak to my interview with Anthony Lowenstein about Israel's military-industrial complex, essentially. Very relevant right now. So,
yeah, I haven't read that book, but I do plan to over this break.
Oh, just to spice things up.
Exactly, just to in between all the other Israel books that I've been.
Yeah. Just different flavors. So we started a little early today because we're going to be speaking to Randi Weingarten, who is limited in her time. So let's get right into it here. A tale of two politicos. That's how I'm going to frame this opening segment. In the reporting about the pause that has been agreed upon, at least we hope, by Israel, the United States, and by Hamas through their negotiators in Qatar. And there were two Politico pieces that came out yesterday, or today, I guess, that told some different stories about the internal politics of these negotiations as it relates to the Biden administration. And we should say the negotiations and the agreement is basically that there will be a 4-day pause in the indiscriminate carpet bombing of Gaza, and humanitarian aid can get in. There will hopefully, if this holds, be 50 women and children hostages released by Hamas and 150 Palestinian prisoners of a 300-person list that was released by Israel will also, if this again goes through, be released as well. And those prisoners, there are thousands of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, many of them without charge and many of them indefinitely. The list that was released of the 300 are mostly teenagers and other who have been imprisoned for throwing rocks and other misdemeanors. So they don't get much attention in this, but the fact of the matter is that Israel has been indefinitely holding Palestinians.
They should have got a lot of attention because actually they could have been used to as leverage to get the hostages back immediately without bombing Gaza. But that was something that we all, the American government and Israel, wanted to do. So now here we are after so long. And
this Politico piece by Aaron Banco and Nahal Tuzi paints a much less rosy picture than the other representation here of these negotiations. But I'll start with the way that I think many pro-Israel people in the Biden administration want it framed. Alexander Ward, Adam Cancran, Jonathan Lemire had a piece saying that the Biden administration officials see proof their strategy is working in hostage deal. So for the Israel hardliners in the administration, they feel like we're going on the right track here, which is insane to me. Some Biden administration officials quietly say the hostage exchange agreement is the clearest signal, yet its strategy towards the Israel-Hamas war is working. Under the breakthrough deal, 50 women and children will be released by Hamas in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. I mentioned it. And then the 4 to 5 day pause will allow the safe transfer and ease the delivery of life-saving aid to suffering Palestinians in Gaza. Again, that doesn't mean that the bombing will end after that pause, and it is still a green light to ethnically cleanse, at the very least, North Gaza, because then the bombing will continue. After there's humanitarian aid and lives saved, these people will not be able to return to their homes ever again. And I do believe that Israel will be moving to annex the entire Gaza Strip as these operations continue. 3 U.S. administration officials said there's no explicit victory lap to take as around 200 hostages will stay behind in Hamas's grasp. And it would be uncouth to celebrate any win after Hamas killed 1,200 people on October 7th, leading to Israel to forcefully respond with a military campaign that the Hamas-led health ministries claim killed more than 1,300 people. Again, these are bureaucrats in Palestine who do this regularly, and the United Nations back these numbers, so I can't stand when they frame it like that. But all suggested President Joe Biden shouldn't shy away from what the policy has accomplished to date. You mean genocide? It's vindication, said one of the officials earlier Tuesday before the deal was finalized, but there's more to do. And this is the money quote that's later on in the piece. The Biden administration insists that Israel has an obligation to defend itself, but should minimize civilian harm in the process. Over recent weeks, the U.S. worked to get 100 aid trucks a day into Gaza from Egypt and is in touch with humanitarian groups on how to further alleviate the suffering of Palestinians in the enclave. You know what would alleviate the suffering is if the bombing would stop permanently.
This is outrageous.
This is the quote here. But the administration remains wary about Netanyahu's endgame and seeming lack of a plan for what to do once Hamas is defeated.
They want to remain naive.
Yep. There was no sense that the pause would turn into a lengthier ceasefire, a senior administration official said, and there was some concern in the administration about an unintended consequence of the pause, that it would allow journalists broader access to Gaza and the opportunity to further illuminate the devastation there and turn public opinion on Israel.
Remember that Shireen Abu Akleh, according to the IDF spokesperson, was armed with a camera.
That is at least some members of the Biden administration speaking to Politico, giving a thumbs up to...
They should be speaking to The Hague.
Israel's policy of trying to create a blackout in Gaza so war crimes can go undocumented. And then this was the other piece in Politico. And I keep returning to that because when you see things in Politico and you hear administration officials speak to that paper in particular, understand that it's more than, even other more like papers of record like the Washington Post and the New York Times, direct efforts to influence people, get their agenda out there in ways that can sometimes verge on gossipy and a little bit irresponsible sometimes, I think. And you can see that there's clearly a war in the media being waged. We know this also because there are many State Department officials who have made their dissent clear via dissent cables, and they're discussed with this. That first piece, that's not the camp that they're in. But this is really important as well to get out there. The Biden administration has been providing Israel with the location of humanitarian groups in Gaza for weeks to prevent strikes against their facilities. But Israel has continued to hit such sites. The information included GPS coordinates of a number of medical facilities and information on movements of aid groups in Gaza to the Israeli government for at least a month, according to three people familiar with the communications. All were granted anonymity because they feared speaking publicly would make it more difficult for aid groups to operate in Gaza. Still, Israel has launched operations against Hamas in or near aid sites, including hospitals, leading to the destruction of buildings and the blocking of fuel and other critical supplies. Among the sites provided to the Israeli government are medical facilities, including Al-Shifa Hospital, parts of which Israeli forces took over on November 15th. So this
should not be presumed to be accidental.
Yes.
Israel doesn't get that. These are...
No, this is explicitly saying it's not.
Right.
The United States is providing them with GPS data, as if that was even necessary. As if Israeli intelligence isn't some of the most well-funded and robust in the world, and they don't have a complete understanding of the geography and the locations of certain groups in Gaza.
They export spy technology across the world. Who do you think they test that stuff out on?
That's what you're going to hear on Friday if you listen to the Anthony Lowenstein interview, the Palestine Laboratory. That's literally what that's about. So, but that's just proof that the Biden administration is telling them, these are hospitals, these are humanitarian organizations, and they're bombing them anyway. And according to that Politico piece, they've been doing it for weeks. So these are the warring factions within the Biden administration right now. And, this is a glimmer of hope. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, obviously, and the fact that there is going to be some pause in the bombing, at least if this holds, is a good thing. But the reality of the continued ethnic cleansing is the one that we have to keep our eye on.
And the continued granting of the premise that they're fighting terror and not just trying to displace people.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's not,
I couldn't even read Bernie's, honestly, piece about security, because this is not about security.
It's absolutely not. It's about using an attack in Israel as an excuse for what they've been trying to do in slow motion for a long period of time. It's an acceleration. Nakba. Yeah. Nakba 2.0. It won't be long before Palestinians are completely cleansed from the Gaza Strip. And then...
Well, no, they can't be. Ultimately, you see these strategies for moving them. No, Gaza, people have to stay... Gaza has to be rebuilt. The world owes it to Gaza.
I agree, but I
know what Israel wants. Absolutely, yeah.
And this pause doesn't address that, acceleration.
No, it's just taking the heat down.
Yeah.
To about mid.
All right, folks. Some words from our sponsors, and then we will be speaking to Randi Weingarten. You're looking for some gifts this holiday season? Aura frames is the way to go. The number one thing your parents want to do is to call them, hang out with them. But the number two thing, I would say, is to give them a thoughtful gift. This holiday season, you can give them a call, of course, and give them an Aura digital picture frame, so you'll have another amazing way to stay in touch. I can just speak from personal experience here. When you give these kinds of gifts where it involves pictures and memories and sentimentality, it just goes such a long way over, getting them socks or a button-down shirt or something like that. This is the kind of thing that your parents, your relatives are really going to love, especially if you don't live close to them and they miss you. Aura Frames was named the, quote, best digital photo frame by Wirecutter and Fast Company. They said this simple, stylish digital picture frame can replace social media in your life. So the next time you need to call your parents, you can also send them a new pic of you from that trip that you're telling them about right from your phone. So it links up to your phone, these picture frames, and it's not a complicated digital frame. Sometimes I know people have difficulty working those. This one you can do literally from your phone. From now through Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Aura is having their best deal of the year. Listeners can save $40 on their best-selling Carver mat frame by visiting auraframes.com/majority. That's AURA frames.com/majority. Use promo code majority to get $40 off their best-selling frames. Again, that's Aura, AURA frames.com/majority. Use promo code majority to get $40 off their best-selling frames. Terms and conditions apply. Now, I am a notorious cashew lover. I have them literally right here from nuts.com. Although, again, when I was out sick, Sam ate basically all of them. So it kind of just speaks to how good they are. He's going to have to get me back with some more product from nuts.com because they've got everything. Cashews, almonds, pecans, pistachios, dried mango, crystallized ginger, dates, jelly beans, jawbreakers. Oh my God, I used to love those jawbreakers. Root beer barrels. The variety is vast at nuts.com. Thank you, nuts.com.
Nuts.com is kind of a misnomer. It's way more than...
it's more. It's nuts and
candies
some.
And stuff like that.
Please join me in thanking nuts.com for supporting the Majority Report. Right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for freshly roasted nuts, dried fruits, sweets, pantry staples like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selection means there is something for everyone. At Nuts.com, quality is top priority. They roast their nuts and pop their corn the same day it ships, so they reach you deliciously fresh. Satisfaction is guaranteed. I mean, I literally have these right on my desk. This is my go-to for whenever I need a snack. And I'm trying to expand to some of those other options there, like those dried fruits and things like that. That sounds very, very good. Nuts.com offers plenty of gluten-free options, organic choices, and other diet-friendly products. Whether you are looking for something sweet, savory, or need to stock up on everyday cooking essentials, you're bound to find something to try. Shop a la carte at any time or opt into hassle-free auto deliveries so you never run out of your favorite items. And if you're already stocked up at home, they also sell directly to businesses so you can keep your commissary stocked for your employees. Right now, Nuts.com is offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/majority. So go check out all of the delicious options at Nuts.com/majority. You'll receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. Nuts.com/majority. And lastly, who are some brilliant duos that made a leap forward? Socrates and Plato, Watson and Crick, hypothesis and conclusion. Well, what about the perfect duo when it comes to growing your business? That's you and Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, and all the way to did we just hit 500,000 orders stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. I think it's because they make it so easy. and sell more with less effort thanks to Spotify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Wow. And Shopify, the global force behind Allbirds and Rothy's and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way, because businesses that grow with Shopify. Shopify is great for the Majority Report, and our merch and all the stuff that we want to get out there. By the way, new merch for us. You should check it out, and you should check out Shopify.
When we do live show stuff, we use the Shopify app, and it is actually we had a live show once for TMBS, and I'm like, we didn't do any preparation for it beforehand. Michael said to me about 2 hours beforehand, "Hey, download this app," and somehow it got working by the end of the show, and we were able to take.
There we go. It makes it even easy for people who are not that technologically sound. Sign up for a $1 per month period at shopify.com/majority, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/majority now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/majority. All right, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be with Randi Weingarten. We are back, and we are joined now by Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. Randi, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know your time is limited, but really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure and my honor.
Well, we kind of, get to do a little bit of dunking on the right wing, which is pretty fun, even in our short conversation here, because on our show, we've been expressing concerns about these right-wing groups with robust financial backing, overwhelming these school board elections, driving turnout for Republicans. That seemed to be at least my assessment of what they were trying to do. But mostly it's about thwarting public education. But the early numbers seem to indicate that the groups like Moms for Liberty and the 1776 Project actually failed pretty miserably. So what's your take on some of the results that we've seen in these groups' efforts?
Parents want their kids to get a decent education. They want public schools to work. And they're tired of people pitting and dividing educators and themselves and hurting kids. So when you start with the first thing you start with is let's forbid this, or let's ban that, or let's, require gobs and gobs and gobs of paperwork, or let's, call our teachers names. None of that is about teaching and learning. And it's particularly not about teaching and learning during the period right after COVID, when you have to help kids develop resilience and a sense of relationships again, and community and connection. And you want kids to come back to school and enjoy school in a safe and welcoming environment and having well-rounded education. So the things that we're trying to do for schooling, these groups like Moms for Liberty, that Southern Poverty Law Center calls an extremist or a hate group, 1776 Project, they're all about the extreme and the divide, when we have to be about the welcoming and safe environment and well-rounded education. So I think what essentially happened was groups around the country, small mom, dad groups, teachers with their unions, they basically got together with candidates that said, oh, no, we want to focus on basics. We want to focus on education, getting our kids to want to be back in schools, making sure that our kids are safe and welcome and having a great time in school and having a well-rounded education. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering that I saw that your union, the American Federation of Teachers, put out, essentially saying that Moms for Liberty, the 1776 Project, lost around 70% of their endorsed races. What's your view of that, I guess, from 30,000 feet, of why those losses, happened, I guess, from the dynamic of like how much people value their public education?
So they just, again, it's a matter of the people on the ground, because school board races are not won from 37 feet above. They're won on the ground with candidates who either believe in public education or don't believe in public education. And Moms for Liberty, they may have a snazzy title, and they have lots and lots of money from gazillionaires, and they have a lot of amplification on extremist TV and radio, and they tell a lot of lies, but they're not the neighbor who's running for school board, who you see in the grocery store, who cares about our kids in public schools. So when you add all of it up, we looked at and we're involved in about 250 races across the country. There's 30,000 school board races. But when you look at places where these extremist groups had won seats beforehand, like Wichita, like Central Bucks, like Loudoun County, in Virginia, like lots of places in Minnesota, or were running on that mantle, 8 out of 10 places, the pro-public education folks won. So I think it's really about Who cares about kids and their education versus who's exploiting anxiety and creating more division? And I think the through line became just look at the censoring of history and the issues around book banning. For every parent that may want a book banned, there are many parents that say, wait a second, that's my decision. Don't take that decision out of my hands by banning a book, by stopping it from being in the library. You're taking it out of my hands. So I think it's just a matter of once we understood what was going on, that this was a political gimmick and this was trying to create more division and chaos, people said, no, I want to really focus on helping kids, not on exploiting anxiety. And that's why I think we won.
You're talking really about the real parental rights, right?
Correct.
As opposed to the cynical cries for parental rights that you hear from these groups. And often that's just a way to go after teachers one by one and make them feel like they're walking some sort of tightrope politically.
Exactly. Think about it this way.
Yeah.
60% of the book banning in Florida is done by 11 people.
Right.
Remember that big issue around Amanda Gorman's poem in Miami-Dade. The person who requested the ban hadn't even read the poem. It's a political gimmick to try to get books out of schools. And so people, parents have to be involved in schools. Teachers have to be involved in schools. Many times, neither has their voices heard enough. But there should be those processes. That's why you have an elected school board and you have school board meetings. And there are processes by which if people don't feel like they have a voice, then they go and they engage in that voice either at a school level or at a school board level and use those processes. Now, sometimes those processes don't work effectively. We complain about them a lot. But that's really different than saying there should be a ban or you shouldn't teach slavery. And that's what I think the difference was. Parents said, wait a second, this is not what I bargained for. This is not what I want for my kids. I want my kids to have a well-rounded education.
Lastly, before I let you go, with all of this kind of stewing with luckily there have been these losses, but the kind of precarity of these well-funded right-wing campaigns to go after school boards and with post-COVID, how are teachers doing generally? The 1.7 plus million teachers that are in your union.
So let me say two things. Number one, teachers want to teach and kids want to learn. Number two, teachers really want to have the ability to teach to what kids need. So they need the resources. They need to be able to have some autonomy. And what we're focused on are things like, how do we make schools fun and meaningful for kids? Experiential learning instead of memorization. In an age of AI, you need that application and critical thinking anyway. In preparing kids for the future, you need that anyway. So let's actually do the things we know will help kids soar, like experiential learning, career tech ed, having debates in school, having lots of extracurricular activities. So that's number one. Number two, teachers need help and support. Lots of kids still haven't recovered from COVID, from the divisiveness, from all of this. So we need to wrap services around schools to make sure kids and families have the services that they need. And why do I start with what kids need? Is because teachers will feel a lot better if we can support kids' needs. Parents really rely on teachers. We know that. They rely on public schools. 90% of parents send their kids to public schools. We need the help and the support as opposed to this constant anger fest and division that the extremists seem to want to do. And so teachers will feel a lot better if we can get teachers paid, a little bit more. They need to have a living wage. So we need to pay them more, but they really, really need the deep respect and the support. They want to teach. They want kids to learn. That's who teachers are.
Teachers are heroes. Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, quick break. And when we come back, we'll be with Jacob Silverman. We are back, and we are joined by, once again, friend of the show, Jacob Silverman, co-author of Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud, host of the Naked Emperor podcast, and writer at places like The Nation and our very own AMQuickie, which you should be checking out if you haven't already. Jacob, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
I've been curious about this OpenAI story, and I was trying to read, Wall Street Journal articles, CNBC. I mean, I was not really able to make heads or tails of it until I read your piece in The Nation on this front. So there's been some drama with this company, OpenAI, over the past week. And let's just get our viewers up to speed, or listeners here, with the most basic questions to start. What is OpenAI and who is Sam Altman?
Sure. There are maybe a half dozen major AI startups. Of course, there are a lot of others, but ones that are valued in the tens of billions of dollars. And OpenAI is the biggest and the most important. And Sam Altman is the CEO and co-founder of OpenAI. He is very popular in Silicon Valley. I think there's actually an interesting kind of social or networking aspect here. He used to be the head of something called Y Combinator, which is the most desired startup incubator in Silicon Valley. If you have a new company, you want to get into Y Combinator to get access to money and connections and things like that. So Sam Altman basically knows every money person in Silicon Valley, and a lot of them like him. He's not necessarily a scientist. He's more of a manager and a money guy. And he was summarily fired from OpenAI, which is valued at more than $80 billion, on Friday. It was just a really sudden kind of firing, where this kind of situation where people thought everything was going well. This is the hottest startup basically in the world. They have a lot of money from Microsoft, and Microsoft definitely plays a role here. And he was suddenly fired. There's a huge uproar, especially from all of his allies in the tech industry and most of OpenAI's employees. It seemed like maybe he would come back, then maybe he was going to go to Microsoft, then maybe the whole company was going to follow him to Microsoft. And now he's back again, it seems, and he's once again CEO of OpenAI, but some of his rivals apparently have been forced to leave.
This is a really interesting dynamic here because the structure of OpenAI is different than, I would say, a standard startup, right? And it appears like the employees of OpenAI were really aligned with Altman. The investors, like Microsoft, which has invested $13 billion into OpenAI, were quite aligned with Altman as well, and they wanted him to stick around. But the board is the one that forced Altman out in this instance. Jacob, what makes that kind of significant, and why, how is this dynamic pretty drastically different from other Silicon Valley companies of its type?
It's a strange company. You might see this flowchart going around online where OpenAI is technically in some ways a nonprofit. There is sort of a for-profit entity at the heart of this that is developing a lot of what we think of as ChatGPT and the OpenAI products. They are actually capped at how much money they can make or how much profit they can make. That's what Microsoft is investing in, and that's the real heart of the company. But then you have these affiliate or sort of overseeing nonprofit elements. And that is where the real clash seemed to be occurring last week and over the weekend, which is that there are some people who are more committed to the nonprofit interests of OpenAI because they think this is a way to develop this technology, but also to contain it. Because we have to acknowledge that there is an almost religious faith at OpenAI and in some parts of the AI world that they are inventing something that's going to be potentially smarter than a human being, artificial general intelligence, as they call it. This is going to change the world. And if they're not careful, it could destroy the world. Pardon me. So that nonprofit kind of wrapper, which has a lot of legal ramifications, is supposed to ensure that OpenAI pursues all this kind of fundamental research, but and creates a nuclear bomb, but doesn't set it off, basically. That's the kind of knife edge dynamic we're really working with here. And from what we understand, I mean, still we're very heavy on gossip, but light on reporting with this story.
Yes.
But which I still have some questions about, like what might have actually happened there. But it seems like Altman and some of his allies, which, as you said, are definitely everyone with the money, really want to push forward. They want to see how far they can take this stuff, keep innovating with ChatGPT, keep rolling out new products to customers, and they hope that one day they will kind of create God in a box, as some people sometimes say. There are other people at OpenAI who seem just as much committed to kind of, frankly, the religious or cultish vision of AGI and AI, and they really think they're working on the most important thing in the world. There's nothing more important than this, not climate change, not anything. But they want to pursue it kind of a different way with a little more caution, perhaps. And as you said, I think what we found really here at the end of this coup and then counter coup is that the people with the money got their way. And I think Microsoft emerged also a little more powerful and a little more controlling of what OpenAI is going to be, as they would want it to be, because Microsoft has committed $13 billion to OpenAI. One last note I think we should say is that these kinds of companies, while some of them aspire towards more altruistic or nonprofit aims, it's incredibly expensive to run a company like this. I mean, Microsoft committed $13 billion because you need almost unlimited amounts of compute, as they call it, basically data center time, GPUs, the actual data, the talent who you pay so much for, Sam Altman and his employees. So it's very hard to actually do this in a committed nonprofit way. Eventually, you're going to need one of these trillion-dollar companies like Microsoft to start paying the bills.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you've sent me a joke over IM. Say it on air.
Oh, I said the true test of AI is, can it make people use Bing search?
Right. Then it will be all powerful like God.
Very much so.
But so it's really interesting too how Microsoft is kind of continuing the vision of its founder in making sure that certain things that are more open sourced are privatized and enclosed by a company like Microsoft. But just putting that to the side for 1 second, I want to return to the board and their concerns. What their concerns reportedly are, because leftists, I think, are concerned that AI is going to supplant much of the labor force, or at least be used as an excuse to lay off many, many people who have honed certain skills that will be deemed redundant by a capitalist class, where they can cost save and implement AI instead. That's definitely my primary concern. My sense is that that is not the concern of the board of OpenAI.
Yeah, I think that the concern, or the level of concern at which they're operating, is really, are we going to create God, and is God going to kill us all? You know, it's really this very far-flung, prophetic, almost eschatological end-of-world vision that they're debating and worried about. Some of this stuff does come out of the world of effective altruism, the kind of Sam Bankman-Fried FTX philosophy.
Oh, good.
Which we don't need to revisit, but even just those associations should say a lot. But as I mentioned in my Nation article, I think the problems with AI are much more immediate, and some of them are here right now. We don't really need to get off on a tangent, but there are also different ways to define what AI is. But I would just say quickly, we already have autonomous systems or automated systems that are telling humans what to do, whether you're in an Amazon factory or you work at a call center. There are already ways in which this stuff is being folded into everyday processes. If you actually call a call center or calls customer support somewhere, there might be an automated system that actually analyzes your voice to determine how much of a problem you're going to be and what level of service you should get. Like they analyze how annoyed you sound. So there are all these little ways. I mean, and we could talk about credit scores, or there are so many ways in which automated systems, some of which may fall under the mantle of AI, are being integrated into our lives, the economy, consumer life, the military, of course. And I think the more immediate questions are, what are we doing with these systems right now, and how are they being foisted upon people, especially lower income people and gig workers and folks like that? That's really the problem, is that AI is not becomes all powerful. It's that it's deemed good enough by some of these big corporate players to then be folded into their systems, because they can say, oh, it's good enough, we'll save some money. And then the problems, of course, trickle down to labor and to consumers.
Yeah, and so how did Altman return then, right? I mean, so they were concerned he was moving too quickly. There are some allusions, as you write in your piece, to maybe him being a bit duplicitous and hiding certain things from the board because he's much more focused on the profit motive that's, I'm sure, like being pushed by Microsoft, which he's very close with, their chief primary investor here, or biggest investor, right? Yeah. So how did they get turned around? Was it just the force of the money?
It may be that. I mean, I think some of this will become clear in the coming days, but when you have those sort of this esoteric philosophical kind of argument versus, hey, we're the leaders of this technology, and if we keep pushing, we can do some really amazing things and make more money. The latter is a lot more clear, I think, justification to folks in Silicon Valley. I think what clearly mattered a lot was that the employees at OpenAI seemed to like Sam Altman and trust him and want to follow him. And they all basically had blank check jobs waiting for them, either at Microsoft or Salesforce, and other companies started emerging saying, we'll hire you too. So it mattered a lot that Sam Altman seems to be synonymous with OpenAI. But I think what you're saying about the board is important and has, in a lot of ways, been overlooked. I mean, some people are talking about this, but it's not a small matter for a board, even if they're motivated by perhaps principles we don't understand, to fire their CEO and to fire a very popular CEO. They released statements saying that Sam, quote, wasn't candid with them. And there was another statement later when they stood by their decision. Of course, the board has now been mostly replaced, except for one person. But that indicates to me that something happened. It doesn't mean it's the most the worst scandal you've ever heard, but some kind of malfeasance or breaking of rules or procedures. There was some reporting that Sam Altman was traveling a lot in the Middle East and other places, trying to raise money from sovereign wealth funds, I assume in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and from Masayoshi Son, the head of SoftBank, who's known for giving out billions of dollars to people like Adam Neumann and WeWork. And supposedly, Sam Altman had interest both in making some kind of AI piece of hardware with Johnny Ive, the legendary former Apple designer. We never really learned what that was. And then his other intended business was to create a chip startup that would compete with NVIDIA and some of the other companies making GPUs and other chips for AI. Now, just real quick, I actually think that is really crazy and kind of reckless, because you don't just create a new chip company that's going to challenge the biggest chip company in the world, arguably, which is NVIDIA, which is doing unbelievably well and is essential to the AI industry. This takes tens of billions of dollars in startup capital. You need brilliant scientists who can actually innovate on this stuff. You need production capacity. You need like 10 years to even get stuff to built and then to customers. So what I think it says, and that is something that I think a board might be concerned about. Hey, you're talking about launching this colossal startup that would compete, that doesn't seem to have a good chance and not really focused here at home. That, to me at least, if I were a board member, which I'm far from it, would raise a lot of questions like, why are you doing this kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, it also just appears to be a continuation of and you say this, I think, in the piece as well, the move fast and break things ideology of Silicon Valley, which is like, we are gonna gobble up as much capital, as much investment as humanly possible. We're gonna skirt as many regulations as we can. We're gonna implement our new technology. And then the law, the structures, they'll fall in place afterwards. But first, we've just got to get to this level of prominence. And I think that's also fascinating to me in terms of, like, was he seeking out investment for that project instead of really focusing in on OpenAI? I mean, we don't know at this point, but what is the need for more investment in something like OpenAI? My guess would be the more valuable use of someone's time in that way would be to start capturing information for AI to learn from, right? Like, there's going to be issues with copyright and with intellectual property that is being completely cast aside due to the move fast and break things philosophy. Yes. What is the status of that in this OpenAI story?
Yeah, I think there's a feeling that perhaps some of the bills will come due later. As you said, the move fast and break things ethos, which was popularized by Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, but we certainly saw it with Uber or Amazon. Basically, Theranos breaking or ignoring laws or regulations, or conveniently sidestepping them, and then kind of either not asking for forgiveness or just reaching some kind of settlement later. So one of those things might be lawsuits over the unbelievable amounts of data, a lot of also copyright information that have gone into OpenAI's models and other companies' models, because they need just these incredible, huge corpuses of data, like everything that's ever been written in the history of humanity, in order to train this stuff. And they will make their own arguments for why they should have some right to this as just training data, but they are using a form of other people's labor or work product. So I think that kind of thing could lead to huge lawsuits later. But really, a lot of it also does come back to just lavishing unbelievable amounts of money on the talent, and then on the hardware and the data centers and the compute time. I mean, one of the things that Microsoft did to sort of both become an investor in OpenAI and to perhaps right the ship and get Sam Altman back in there was they offer a lot of computation resources because it's needed. So, and that's why you only have a few of these big AI companies likely to move forward. And that, again, gets us back to this fundamental contradiction. Like, how can you have this sort of be a public serving or altruistic or even nonprofit kind of entity when it's clearly just this unbelievable consumer of capital and resources?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like the vision, the almost religious vision that you describe from the employees and even from the board or whatever is meant to paper over those very facts there. And it's a lot easier to operate in an unethical way when you think that you're creating, like, God via computing. And that's
what could be a higher goal than that?
Yeah.
Jacob, do you have any sense of, is the AI bubble softening? Is the bullishness disappearing? Because I think people do. There was all this talk like a year ago about how this is going to be exponentially improving. So you think it's good now? Well, actually, a year from now, it's just going to be even better. But you actually look at what it takes to even produce what it's producing now, which is a tremendous amount of computing. What's your sense of the bullishness for AI?
I think certainly the people with the money, VCs and sovereign wealth funds, and some of these companies are still very excited. But I think outside analysts and even just some everyday observers, like, I'm curious how many people actually use AI in their lives, like as a productivity tool. We hear about sometimes. Frankly, I know some people in finance who use different versions of kind of boutique LLMs. Those are the large language models to look at stuff. Or I've talked to programmers who you can have OpenAI or other AI programs just create some kind of generic code for you, and you still have to proofread it. But given how the lack of exponential improvement and the huge amount of hallucinations, as they call them, the just false information, I don't really see how people can rely on this stuff as a work or productivity tool. So the initial wave of hype was so huge, and they might cite user numbers, but I also wonder how many of those people are actually using it as anything more than an idle entertainment that they log into once in a while or make a funny meme out of.
Yeah.
And so while I would say that AI probably has more use cases than crypto, our last form of mega tech hype, and I see why some of the enthusiasm is there, there's still a point soon, I think, where they're going to have to follow through on some of these utopian promises, or at least show that like this stuff has an obvious and appealing use case that can be spread widely and that can scale in the way that they imagine. Right now, I think there's a lot of excitement sort of about the novelty of the technology, but still not really that fundamental implementation without the hallucinations.
Lastly, Jacob, before we let you go, can't have you on the show without asking about your thoughts about the Binance CEO. Basically, what 50 is it 50 million or 50 billion that he has to pay? Or I don't have the exact article in front of me, but he got convicted of those money laundering. So what's going on there?
CZ, also known as Changpeng Zhao, but most people call him CZ, the co-founder and CEO of Binance. I mean, this was the white whale of crypto, basically. For people who follow, this is as big as SBF being arrested. In some ways, it's less dramatic. We knew that his company, Binance, had been negotiating with U.S. law enforcement and regulators for a while. The company is going to pay a fine of more than $4 billion. I think his personal fine is about $50 million. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a lot more than that squirreled away somewhere. He came to the U.S. He came to federal court in Seattle. I never thought I'd see him come to the U.S., frankly, because of the criminal cloud hanging over him. But he came to court. He pleaded guilty. And really, it's to make all this go away. There are a lot of problems if you try to pursue this to its ultimate conclusion. Binance is mostly overseas. CZ is a Canadian citizen with Chinese ties. It's just a complicated situation. But this is the biggest crypto exchange in the world. And it's been kneecapped, basically, to put it bluntly. I don't think it'll collapse overnight, but their ability to do business anywhere near the U.S. or with dollars is going to be severely hampered. So CZ might have a short prison term. Some people might think he got off a little lightly, but this is a fundamental change for Binance and for the enforcement against crypto. It's just not going to look the same after this.
All right, can we anticipate some more writing from you or some episodes of Naked Emperor podcast where people can hear more about this?
I hope so. I can't let go of these guys. I love these characters, and there are other people like Justin Sun or the Tether guys, or maybe something on CZ, or there's going to be Sam Bankman-Fried another trial in March, probably over this bribery charge. So I can't get away from it.
His parents, too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think besides them getting sued, if you look at the lawsuit against them from FTX, there is stuff in there that I think criminal investigators are looking at. So this is far from over.
Well, Jacob Silverman, if you want to read his book, co-authored with Ben McKenzie, Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud, you definitely should. You can hear more about these kinds of topics. Jacob's, an expert on this. Listen to the Naked Emperor podcast and subscribe to the AMQuickie, where you can see some of Jacob's writing in our newsletter.
Great way to wake up.
Yeah, I love. It really is. It's like I read it, when I'm sitting on the subway or whatever. So I'm able to kind of have some good, a good baseline of news before I do all my reading before the show. So anyway, Jacob, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, quick break. And then we're going to have special guest Jason Myles on. Yes?
Before we get to Jason, I just wanted to, there's a little, sorry, I know we got to hurry here, but Elon Musk has his own AI chatbot.
Oh, he does.
It's called Grok. And
he's horrible at naming things.
He sucks. And I just thought we might look at the way Grok, in a fun way, summarize that same story. If you have this up, Bradley.
Grok sounds like a cartoon character bully.
Grok is somebody in the chat will probably let us know. I think it's from like some sci-fi thing where it's like to understand fully is the word Grok. But anyway, so this is the Grok summary of the from the whole Mars catalog from Grok. All right, folks, gather round for a no-holds-barred, profanity-laden roast of this week's X-shenanigans. We've got more twists and turns than a drunken sailor navigating a maze of hookers and blow. So this is Elon Musk's chatbot.
So there is it being trained
it's supposed
to be
funny.
comedic?
Yeah, it's trying to be funny. This is trying to be a funny summary of the Sam Altman thing. And just one paragraph here. So let's start with our boy Sam the Scapegoat Altman.
All right, but what's funny about calling him the scapegoat? Except, all right.
You don't understand humor.
So
let's start with our boy Sam the Scapegoat Altman. This guy's career is like a game of whack-a-mole on crack. One minute he's out on his ass, the next he's back in the saddle like a boss. It's like watching a never-ending episode of The Walking Dead where the zombies keep coming back for more.
It's just like that. So, they did 2 cocaine references in 4 sentences.
And that took about the amount of power to like that Barbados uses in a month to come up with that.
Yeah, good. I hope we burn down more of the rainforest. So
shocking that the writers won their strike demands despite this being one of the tools that the producers had in their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Apparently we can't turn it over to the AI chatbots yet.
Not quite. All right, folks, quick break. When we come back, we'll be with Jason Myles. We are back, and we are joined by friend of the show, Jason Myles, co-host of This Is Revolution, the podcast. And Jason has a mini book coming out, and we're here to talk about it. It was called I Was a Teenage Anarchist. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys for having me. Sorry it took so long for me to fix my technical difficulties.
No, you're fine. We were supposed to have you on Thursday, but I was sick. So we're happy to have you on now to talk about it. I remember your piece about being about this very topic. What made you decide to make it into a mini book?
I was asked by one of the Sublation editors, who's been publishing like small pamphlets, which I really dig, actually, because people don't really read long 300-page books. Not everybody's going to be Matt Leck, sit around and read books all day.
Right.
Or us for our job. We have to read all these authors that come on. So I really like the small pamphlet idea, especially when it comes to ideas about theory. So he hit me up and he said, even if you have something that you wrote before, I would love to publish it. And I said, well, I have this thing that I really dug. Maybe you'll like it. And I sent it to him. He was like, hell yeah, let's put it out. And we did. And as me being a very unconventional person, I wanted to have a launch party for this mini book pamphlet and invite my rock star friends in a nice intimate setting in the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from. And we did that this past weekend, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that stinks that, again, we wanted to have you on to talk about the book launch party, but it did end up passing. However, we can talk a bit about the book. Like, it's all good.
Yeah, it's Mexico.
Well, I mean, it looks nice. I saw a glimpse of the sky when you were showing us, so I'm pretty jealous.
It's so gorgeous right now.
All right, keep rubbing it in.
Jesus Christ.
It in. So, like, what did you do to kind of flesh out your story here, and
Sure.
What did you want to convey by making it longer and speaking about this particular time in your life and growing up and how it informs you today?
I wanted to talk about, because what I saw happening, in my opinion, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, what I see with kind of a left in its, as one friend said, embryonic stages right now, that really comes out of, in my opinion, more so the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign. There are these two cultures that kind of fight against each other that I saw coming up in heavy music. And those are the cultures of deconstruction, which is the culture of no, and the culture of authenticity, which says, like, you can't be part of my movement because you're not cool enough, or you're not wearing the right thing, or you're not saying the right things. And I felt like those two things were kind of working against each other to nullify the movement, to grow beyond kind of a small niche milieu into the mainstream. So I juxtaposed the left with kind of the early stages of hardcore punk music.
And, what were some of the, not to spoil the whole book, but what were some of the main contrasts and connections that you found?
One of the things that I found is, like, co-optation is going to happen to your movement as you're kind of struggling for authenticity and realism. And you have to ask yourself a bigger question, which is, are you, and I say this in the book, are you raging at the machine, against the machine, or are you raging to be a part of the machine? And one of the things that I kind of came to the conclusion, and in talking to the guys at the live show the other night, they didn't necessarily disagree with it too much, that almost this music becomes like a cottage industry for people that can't get into the mainstream. Because once they get access into the mainstream, they don't mind playing all these corporate festivals, right? They don't mind playing Vans Warped Tour. They don't mind, getting sponsorships and playing these huge corporate venues. So what was the real meaning of what they were trying to do? And then you look at a band like Nirvana. Sorry if I'm all over the place. And Nirvana, in my opinion, we can talk about grunge and how it's not a genre all day long. That's probably another show that Sam would probably prefer to be on. But they're hardcore punk. They have their roots in hardcore punk. I mean, when Kurt Cobain kills himself, Dave Grohl picks up Pat Smear from the Germs and and Chris Novoselic joins my friends in Flipper, two seminal hardcore punk bands. But you change the name and of the genre of music, and it's more easily consumable to the masses. And what you ended up seeing with hardcore punk music through grunge is kind of, we'll take the aesthetic of this music that's supposed to be so subversive and anti-establishment, and we'll sell anti-establishment.
Yeah.
And now you've commodified it. And
well, Kurt hated that. I mean, that's I was a big Nirvana fan in my teenage years. I read Heavier Than Heaven, and there's a difference between nihilism and anarchy, or basically being a rebellious artist or someone speaking to these kinds of things. Because Kurt, for example, was very pro-gay, pro these social movements, but also deeply resentful of the capitalist structures that force them into certain boxes. And I guess that is punk to a degree, but then
he didn't mind the record, the major label deal. I mean, he could have stayed at Sub Pop.
And
right?
you can see that tension, I guess, between wanting that success and then also hating yourself for wanting that success too, that he embodied.
I mean, the bigger question is, it's like, why do people have to swear a vow of poverty to be authentic, right? And that's something that happens in our world as well, where if you've reached a certain level of success, now you're no longer authentic. You've been sucked up by the establishment. But again, the culture of deconstruction, which I just kind of call the culture of no, and a lot of this music is just kind of anti-everything. And in the end, what was hardcore really? I mean, definitely there's aspects of people from the genre that had politics, like Jello Biafra, but he doesn't represent every group or person in the scene as well. And you kind of have, if anything, kind of anti-consumerism is the biggest thing that you get out of that, which is kind of what you see still now. Like the best capitalism is anti-capitalism, right? Being able to sell anti-capitalism as this cool subversive thing. And to me, what you end up getting is your leftism, if you will, much like your punkness or realness, becomes a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, I think that's really clear too, in the purity test or the authenticity test that you describe. And I mean, that's awesome that you explore that in your book. And what were some of the conclusions that you drew about that particular tension that can be applied to leftists counting Bernie's houses, for example, or liberals doing so, and saying that that in some way negates any of the politics?
I did recently write a piece for Damage Magazine about Ibrahim X. Kendi. And it's not necessarily about, let me pull back a little bit. I didn't want to make it about Ibrahim X. Kendi because, again, with stuff like that, it can end up being like, once the bad man's gone, then the bad theory is gone. And what he's building on is something that's been around for a while, trying to be kind of a race ventriloquist. What Kendi was able to do, though, with anti-racism was kind of kneecap the left, in my opinion. Excuse me. And he doesn't do it by himself. He actually has help from BLM. If you think about, I think it's 2015 when Bernie's on the stump trail and he's doing a speech about Medicare and Social Security, two things that definitely greatly benefit Black people and have for some time. Before he can even start speaking, BLM gets on stage and starts yelling about racist cops. And they're pushing back against someone that they probably should be working with, since his campaign is designed to help poor and working class Black people, poor and working class everybody. But it doesn't have, to them, a racialized agenda. And the Democratic Party is able to see that and take that and use it in spades. And Kendi, in his How to Be an Anti-Racist book, and I think there's a little bit of true believer in him. I don't think he's a straight up charlatan that's, like a carnival barker. What he's able to do is say, they're these conjoined twins, and it's capitalism and racism. And you can't be an anti-capitalist without being an anti-racist. But the basis of the book is about his spiritual journey into anti-racism, not his spiritual journey into Marxism. And it's kind of about the hearts and minds of white people. Ta-Nehisi Coates recently said something along the lines of, if you can't accept someone's humanity, there's no bit of legislation that will fix that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you trying to say the Civil Rights Act doesn't mean anything unless all the white people in the world feel a certain way about me? Abe Lincoln couldn't do the Emancipation Proclamation only until he accepted that black people were human beings, needed to be respected to a certain level.
Yeah.
I don't really care about what's in the hearts and minds of white people. I care about the economic stability of over 40 million black people.
Yeah, it is segmenting and divorcing, racial equality and liberation, I should say, is probably the better word for it, right? From systems of politics and systems of change and revolution. It's like, oh, this is at least in reference to the Coates argument that you're describing here. It's much more individualized, atomized. It's emotional, as opposed to being like direct results of capitalism, colonialism, structures that made things this way. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is your assessment that really hamstrings efforts of liberation when you frame things in that way?
Yeah, because first of all, you're always going to play the oppression Olympics. I've never seen a winner at the oppression Olympics, and sorry, and sorry, and then what happens is when you get away from the economic model, what you'll find is these people end up winning in the corporate sphere, and that's really what Kendi was able to do with anti-racism. You also see it with Robin DiAngelo Kelly early on. I don't know if she's still the player that she once was in the.
Well, that's literally a white person who is framing anti-racism around the sensibilities of white people.
Kendi's isn't much different, right? It's about, we have to fix the hearts and minds of these people, because if we don't get into the hearts and minds of these people, if they don't see me as a blah, 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 then we can never really tackle this thing called capitalism. And I don't believe that. When we integrated schools, it wasn't because all the white people felt okay about it, right?
Yeah.
It took state power to get in there and do it. So to assume that economic freedom is going to come from all oppressive people saying, these cats are okay. It's just silly to think that way. But because of the way our media works as well, that's kind of the narrative that we have, right? Martin Luther King's speech at the March on Washington isn't about economic freedom, which it is. It's about the acceptance of a colorblind world. And that's not what it was all about. So these guys that kind of live in this past, an almost imagined past, especially people with like Ta-Nehisi Coates. Originally in that piece, I had a very large part about Coates, which, it's 2,000 words. You can only get so much in there, because I don't think you can really talk about Kendi, BLM without talking about the rise of Ta-Nehisi Coates as well. He's kind of a integral character in that. Ture Reed talks about it extensively in Towards Freedom. I advise everybody to read that book. But he's kind of a wannabe Baldwin in a time where Baldwin doesn't make that much sense. So this idea that you have to humanize these people to understand their plight, and only then can we work towards a more just society. It sounds nice in a Hallmark movie, I guess, but the reality of it is I'd rather have, economic policy. I'd rather have jobs programs. I'd rather be trying to abolish the conditions that cause impoverished urban cores and massive amounts of homelessness. So that's only going to come through policy, not from winning the hearts and minds of racists.
Yeah, I mean, I to return to Coates, because we praised him on this program recently for his for speaking out, calling Israel an apartheid state. I mean, and the praise was not. I mean, it's all within the context of like, this is good because Obama reads him and hopefully crafts
and also
to
put that even to greater context. One, he was hired by Jeffrey Goldberg, who was a prison guard in Israel, and very pro-Israel. And also in his reparations piece that really brought him to fame, he mentions Israel as a positive example for how reparations can be done.
Which he apologized for.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So that's growth on that front. But like so it's helpful that someone like Coates is talking about Israel as an apartheid state. That's, to get the change we need to see, I'm going to take that 100%. But when you listen to his words, there isn't really any conversation about colonialism or capitalism at all, and the structures that led to apartheid or segregation, which he likens to, obviously, segregation and Jim Crow in the United States. But why were those systems in place? Why is Israel strategically placed in that way? Why were Black people subjugated and second-class citizens and continue to be disenfranchised, not in the place that they should be due to the systems of racism? It feels like it's difficult to get anti-racist writers to take that next step, at least mainstream anti-racist writers.
Well, because there's money to be made and people really love hearing a certain narrative, right? Look, on my show, if me and Pascal said white supremacy all the time, we'd have a hell of a lot more viewers. We'd get some nicer messages in the inbox.
Right.
But when I wrote in the damage piece, I said, I'm from a city called Richmond, California. The city that I'm from is one of the most diverse cities in America. It's pretty even across the board, right? Now, you take a Black woman that works at McDonald's, fighting, making maybe a little bit more than minimum wage. The owner of that McDonald's and most of the McDonald's in the urban core of the Bay Area is Black. Most of her coworkers are going to be Black. Her mayor is Latin. Her chief of police is Black. The cops arresting the Black people robbing her are Black. Maybe even her direct boss is Black. So what is anti-racism going to do for her? Richmond, California is also one of the most impoverished cities in the state and one of the more impoverished in the nation. So what has representation done for her? What has the trickle down of Black wealth done for her? Because it hasn't trickled. If it didn't trickle down for Reagan, why is it trickling down for us? Right. Yeah. So these cats can't really get beyond that argument because, like you said, it is an impassioned one that invokes an emotion of a real past. Is it a real past that these people lived? Most of them know. Right.
Right.
Coates didn't live in apartheid America at all. But you hear him talk, you would think he did. So again, I really want to talk about the economic situation for 40 million Black folks, other than really giving a damn about how every white person feels about me in their heart. I live in a country right now where people's petty racism just doesn't matter because I have economic buying power. I get paid in the American dollar. Cops don't mess with me. The natives of the area love me. So, my take on racism might be a little different than someone else's.
It's about power. I mean,
it is.
And that's
trip off this for a second, guys. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I interrupted you first.
I promise I'll shut up after this. I would love to hear you guys' take on this. I think I said this on Matt and David's show. I was recently on Left Reckoning. Please check that out. Around the same time as the 94 crime bill, Bill Clinton adds a sentencing requirement to hate crime law. I see you, I hear you, I feel you, Black people. Now we have this surplus population that's suffering due to deindustrialization. And the way we're going to handle this surplus population is with a massive crime bill, right? Now, the way this surplus population was able to thrive in urban areas is through the influx of cheap cocaine that's flooded into these areas because there's open air drug markets. So the government doesn't really care, right? So the government's turning a blind eye to all this cocaine. So you're talking now about like a kilo of cocaine that may cost these guys $3,000 to $5,000. And you can take that cocaine, cut it, and cook it down into crack. And now that $3,000 to $5,000 investment turns into $50,000 to $100,000. Not necessarily overnight, but probably in a couple days' time. You have an instant distribution system with gangs. And you have a captive market because of the location of where you are, right? Due to all these people that can't really move anywhere because they're impoverished. So now you're talking about street corners or apartment complexes or raggedy ass HUD homes that could be worth millions of dollars due to this product and its distribution system. And we looked at this problem for years, not as capitalism in an underground market in an illegal economy. We looked at it as wayward youth that have no fathers, right?
Another personalization of systemic problems.
And so as these kids are basically just using capitalism, right? Because they don't have the courts. Corporations can put people in litigation for months or years. These guys can't sue somebody over drug turf to take over a place. They use violence. You start recruiting more people because it's more profitable to take over more of this turf because it's worth so much money. Now, with that quick explanation, we can understand the 90s a little bit better. But the solution to this problem becomes lock them up. So again, in 1993, Bill Clinton, we know we're going to lock everybody up. We know we're going to build more jails. We're going to hire more cops. And people in these communities are asking for this because it's the only way we know how to solve this problem. And right before it happens, he goes, I see you. Anti-racism, we're going to put an extra sentencing requirement on hate crimes because this is unfair. This is unjust.
Yeah.
And it's like, I grew up in Richmond, California, which was a violent area in the 80s and 90s. I wasn't running from the Klan. Right?
Yeah.
That's not who I was scared of. What the hell is this bill going to do for me? But everybody applauded it. At the same time, we're also massively cutting welfare. So you have surplus population, people. And the only way we know how to deal with this surplus population, people, is not jobs programs. It's build more prisons, lock these fools up. Maybe some of them will learn how to code. F it, not my problem. But is anti-racism going to fix that at that point?
Or just this is a massive problem of warehousing a surplus population that we don't provide resources or economic opportunity for. So let's also add a few more racists into that system as well, and as if that's going to like deconstruct exactly what created this. So Jason, to wrap things up here before just to let you go, I want I'm on the site for your book, but it says it's out of stock already. Is it out of stock? Where can people get it?
Sometimes I'm that popular.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's hot off the presses.
No, send an email, ask Alfie. I'm sure they're going to do a second run. I'll send a message to him today and tell him, we need to do more.
All right. Well,
Left Reckoning selling too many books, apparently.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, shout out to Left Reckoning because someone showed up to the show who I definitely harassed. He looked at me and he goes, "Oh, I saw you on Left Reckoning and I figured I'd come through." I was like, "Oh, do you watch my show?" He goes, "No." And then Ben Burgess walks in. He saw Ben Burgess. He goes, "Ooh, hey, I know you." And I was like, "This effing guy, man. Everybody knows Ben Burgess."
I mean, but it's just you're planting a seed, Jason. You're planting a seed. So we'll put a link to the store, and then like people can return to it, and there should be more in stock hopefully soon.
Yes. Yes.
The book is called, or the mini book is called, "I Was a Teenage Anarchist." I loved the piece. I can't wait to read the book. Jason Myles.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thank Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bradley. Sorry again that I had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, well, don't apologize. And congrats on the Broncos being on a winning streak.
Can you just admit real quick before half the people leave that Jared Goff is a very good quarterback?
No, I will not admit that. What are you talking about?
Am I going to have to go to New York and watch a Lions game with you?
Dude, they're like one of the most talented teams in the NFL. They have a very creative play caller. He's okay, but he also can't throw outdoors because he doesn't have a very strong arm, and he's not
I disagree with that. So do we have? I'm supposed to do something in New York soon.
Okay.
Do we have to go and watch a football game together?
So you would rather have Jared Goff than Russell Wilson quarterback your team? Okay, I think I would too. Sunday. I think I would too.
Twice on Sunday.
Would you rather? I'm trying to think. Would you rather have Derek Carr or Jared Goff?
Goff.
I think I'd rather have Jared Goff too. Okay, I'm putting him at like he's middle of the pack in the NFL. I'm not saying he's exceeded my expectations in Detroit.
Emma,
how about
we
that?
call what you're
this information. Whether or not it's true is not what matters. Though it does play a role.
Oh my God.
How is there three parts to that? Yeah.
Emma, we call this on our show Anglo-pessimism is what you're suffering from right now.
I'm a self-hating white?
Yes, you have to stop your Anglo-pessimism, accept Jared Goff as a quality quarterback, and then the world can be a better place. Just stop your Anglo-pessimism.
All right, well.
That's what it means to be a mighty man.
That's what it means to stand on the Jared Goff train. Oh, man. Well, they're a fun team anyway. So the Giants, I'm hoping they tank. That's really where I'm at this point.
We're at about half the concurrent viewers that we were at.
Oh my God, you people are horrible people. Jesus, I will watch a football game with all of you. Come watch a football game with me. I guarantee you will have a good time.
Next time you're in New York, we'll go to a sports bar or something, and we'll watch some games. I would really like that because can't really get many of my friends to do it with me. So new friends or not new friends. I've actually known you for a little while now, Jason. But anyway, appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Jason. There we go. I'm losing steam. Check out the book. Link in the description and at majority.fm. Thanks, Jason. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah, that too. Peace,
Thanks,
guys.
Jason.
See ya. All right, guys. For everyone that's still around, you can check out ESVN for more of that kind of stuff. Bradley and I will be posting our picks against the spread at some point, either today or tomorrow, since we didn't have time to, or tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so we couldn't do our episode. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Left Reckoning last night we had Nick Terrace on the program to talk about America and how it deals with its killing of civilians with bombings dropped from the skies, and it's not much better than Israel. And also we talked a little bit about Norm Finkelstein on Candace Owens, including placing very well the context of those Hamas elections that Zionists point to say, like, hey, we can actually bomb these people indiscriminately because of the elections that happened in the 2000s. Finkelstein mentions that Hillary said after that, like, we should have rigged those elections.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Candace Owens' entire posture changes when Finkelstein says that about Hillary, it's a masterclass in knowing your audience.
It's key. That is like Thanksgiving conversations coming up with some conservatives. Hillary's less relevant now, but back in like 2016,
Hillary's still relevant to conservatives, though.
So if you want to get them to trust you, just throw in a little rightful jab at Hillary Clinton, and they'll start to ease up. It's funny that that's all it took for Candace Owens. There's a Republican uncle in my life.
Yeah, there's somebody saying Hamas barely won, then killed all of their rivals. They're brutal. Maybe you know something better than Jimmy Carter did, who said that was a free and fair election. And then after Israel and America said, "Oh yeah, we should have rigged that election, and we can't deal with these people as political representatives." So yeah, I think that it's not to defend Hamas, but it is to say that they are not the obstacle to peace in that region. Actually, Israel and Zionism is.
We should have played that clip of Jimmy Carter. I guess that was from the 80s or 90s on Israel. Maybe we can find that for the fun half.
He wrote a book called, I can't remember what it's called, Democracy or Apartheid or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and of course AIPAC went crazy about that too, and because they are they exist not to assess things as apartheid accurately or not, but to lie about an apartheid project, ethnic cleansing project.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know that Carter wasn't the most amazing president, but even now at 99 years old on Halloween, the Carter Center called for a ceasefire in Gaza.
That's,
return of hostages, opening of humanitarian.
He's a blue-haired college kid, though, from what I understand.
Yeah. Smoke too much peyote. I mean, like the obviously Carter's post-presidency puts everybody else's to shame. And I guess we didn't even headline it, but that's Rosalind Carter passed away. And I know Jimmy's Carter's been in hospice
Since
so
February, yeah. But
November of
November of 2006.
Life well lived. Yeah.
November of 2006 was when he published Palestine: Peace, Not Apartheid. That's what the book is called.
And we know what the government of Israel chose.
Mm-hmm. All right. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second. Now let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? This me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-501.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick.